Hey all, this is Ian, and I thought I'd show you how I'm installing a new set of seats on our 2018 Ford Expedition, which is this here. We bought this a couple months ago, and we got a great deal on it, but part of the reason is it's a police model, an SSV, and that's good in some ways. It's really base level, and then we've got kids, and base level is what we want. It's also got the tow package, so we can tow heavy trailers with it. It's got trailer brake control inbuilt and all that kind of good stuff. But one downside is the police model only comes with 5 seats, and we really wanted an 8-seater. So I've gone ahead and taken out this thing, which is the piece of hardware that sits in place of the third row seat. There's only 4 bolts involved. It's pretty easy to get out. I've also taken out the piece that sits behind it, which is going to go back in, which has the tire jack and things like that inside of it. And tore the car down quite a bit, taken off all the trim that goes around the rear door and these 2 side panels, because I got a set of seats for the third row off a wreck. It's a 60-40 type seat, so it's split 40%, 60% into 2 different seats, and they bolt in where that where this thing came out of. There's a bolt hole there. This one's not used with that one's not used, and then there's one over there which is used, and then there's the same in the back. There's one here that's used, there's a couple more in the middle, and then one over here. So the new seats will reuse those 4 holes, but there's each seat actually has 6 of its own bolts, and the remaining 8 holes are covered up with tape in this model. So you have to take the tape off, and then the metal behind the tape actually needs to be threaded, and I've run into a bit of trouble with this because it's a mix of M10 by 1.5 and M12 by 1.75 threads, and this is the if I can get it in focus, this is the M8 the M10 tap I used to try and thread it, but it tore it up pretty bad. I think this was pretty cheap when I bought it, and it's wore out now, so I've had to order some new M10 and M12 by 1.5 and 1.75 taps with some good cutting fluid to hopefully cut out those remaining 8 bolt holes for the seats to go in. That's also the case for the seat belts. So there's I got the seat belts at the same time from the same wreck. That's the seat belt mechanism, and it has 1 bolt. That's a M10 that's going to need to be also threaded, and then up top, up in you can't really see it, but up in behind this piece that's a piece of plastic cover, but there's a metal hanger in there. There's a bolt in there that needs to be tapped, or I need to run a tap up there. This is for the middle seat belt, needs to be tapped, and there's a hanger, or the mechanism is up in here. I don't know if you can see that. And the same obviously over on this side, on the passenger side, US passenger side. The mechanism and hanger will need to be tapped. So I have to do a lot of tapping to get these in. I don't know why it doesn't come pre-tapped, but I guess that's how they make the car. The other thing I've had to do is cut holes in the headliner for the trim and for the seat belts to get in, because it doesn't come with holes in it. Be careful with this. I've actually overcut this center hole for this. This is the piece of trim that goes for the center seat belt, and I didn't realize it's actually quite far forward. It looks like the cutout should be centered in this kind of protrusion in the headliner, but it's actually quite far forwards, and I had to put a piece of plastic or something to cover where I cut it too far in the back to get it to go in. But other than that, that's all the work that needs to be done for the most part as far as bolts and install goes. It's probably going to be 20 or 25, well, it won't be 25, but 20 plus tap threads that need to be cut to get all bolted in with these mix of M10 and then M12 bolts. The other thing that needs to be done is on the police version, it's not pre-wired for the third row power fold feature. I maybe could have got the harness off the wreck, but I didn't. So what I'm going to have to do is figure something else out. And what I've done is, this is the 60% seat, and it's quite simple. There's 2 motors. There's one motor there and one motor on the other side, and they 2 sets of wire, or a pair of wires powers each one. So it's actually, well, this wire and that wire go to one of the motors, and this wire and this wire go to the other motor. And when you put positive 12 volts on it, it goes up, and when you put negative 12 volts on it, it goes down. And I tested that with a battery to verify. I think the other wires might be to do with like limit positions. I don't know what I'm not sure what they're for, but they don't really matter to me. They don't really seem to have any function on how the seat operates. But those wires I need to rewire, so I've chopped the pair that, for up and the pair for down, and I've put some crimp terminals on it, and I'm gonna wire that into pair of switches. I'm going to wire it into a rocker reverse polarity switch, which takes 12 volts and ground, and if you press up it sends positive 12 volts, if you press down it sends negative 12 volts, and that'll cause the seats to go up and down. I'm also going to get a SPDT rocker switch to choose which seat to run up and down, so that will send either current to one seat if I have the option 1 pressed on the rocker, and the other seat if it's pressed down to option 2. So between those two switches wired up, I can select which seat to actuate and whether it should be going up or down. And that, I'm going to get power for that out of this power outlet cigarette lighter in the back, on the back passenger side. I've got him behind here, excuse me, and pre-chopped those wires. And I'm going to wire that switching into these wires, and then obviously run that down to the seats. I did test this 60 seat as to how much current it draws. I used some fuses, some old fuses I had, to see where they burn out, and it's somewhere between 5 and 10 amps. It burned a 5 amp fuse but didn't burn a 10 amp. So that should be okay to run off the cigarette, the power outlet circuit, which is fused for 15 amps. And I'll go from there. If it doesn't, we'll have to figure something else out. So anyway, that's a 60% seat, that's a 40% seat, and I haven't seen anything else about this because it's quite a new vehicle, so I haven't seen this being done on any other vehicles. But if you have this same situation, hopefully that helps a little bit in what you need to do to put in a third row seat in a 2018 or newer Ford Expedition. Thanks.